Hi there, welcome to the podcast Highways and Byways. It's a podcast about Texas. I'm your host, Chris Carlisle. Well, they had a geology event for kids at the Bell County Museum in Belton last Saturday. The Temple Fire Chief looked back on a decade on the job, and he talked about how the upgrading for the fire department resources is continuing. They had a church in the park last Saturday at the Whistle Stop Park in Temple. It helped kids get ready for school. The Temple PD and the Crestview Church of Christ had their annual backpack giveaway last Saturday. All right, next I'll tell you about the syndicated radio show that used to come on called Live From Gilley's. Back when I worked at KCRM in Cameron, one of the programs we carried was called Live From Gilley's. It was a show that featured acts playing at Gilley's in Pasadena. It was syndicated by Westwood One, and it often ran during my shift, which meant I got to run the board during it. And it was on the weekends. Some of the the performers that were on there were Hank Williams Jr., the Charlie Daniels Band, the father and daughter duo of the Kendalls, Asleep at the Wheel, and George Jones. Next, look back at Texas in 2015. Alright, here's a look back at some of the things that happened in Texas in the year 2015. They had the 50th annual Academy of Country Music Awards at AT&T Stadium in Arlington. Luke Bryan won Entertainer of the Year. Miranda Lambert won Album of the Year for Platinum. Miranda Lambert also won Female Artist of the Year. Jason Aldean was the Male Artist of the Year. Little Big Town was the Group of the Year. Florida Georgia Line was the Duel of the Year. I Don't Dance by Lee Brice was Single of the Year. Automatic by Nicole Gallion, Natalie Hemby. Miranda Lambert won Song of the Year. American Kids by Kenny Chesney won Video of the Year. This Is How We Roll with Florida Georgia Line and Luke Bryan got Vocal Event of the Year. They handed out the 50th Anniversary Milestone Award, and the recipients were George Strait. My sister got to see him perform in a concert when he was just starting out in the mid-'80s at the Mayburn Center in Temple. Miranda Lambert, Taylor Swift, Reba McEntire, Garth Brooks, Kenny Chesney, and Brooks and Dunn. There was a flooding in Houston, also near Wimberley. An EF1 tornado struck West Corpus Christi in May. There was rain and flooding from Hurricane Patricia in October. Getting back to that flooding in Houston, I think it flooded around downtown when the Rockets were when a playoff game. I think they had to shelter the crowd there at the Toyota Center in place. 10 people got killed when a EF4 tornado hit Grand Prairie in December. The Highland Mall in Austin closed. I remember going there a couple of times back in the 90s. UT Pan American closed. Texas Cable News, TXCN, went off the air. I remember watching that. It came on in 98, 99, I think. All right, next, look at the old park in Arlington called Seven Seas Marine Life Park. here's the story of a park that used to be in Arlington called Seven Seas Marine Life Park. It was off of Interstate 30 near Six Flags and Arlington Stadium. It opened on March 15th, 1972, a month before the Rangers started playing. Anyway, it lost $500,000 in 1972, in 1973, in 1974, and 1975. So they sold the animals in 1975 and reopened the park as Hawaii Kai in 1976. But it had all-time low attendance, and the City Council of Arlington voted to close it rather than because it didn't generate enough revenue to pay the expenses and also any debts. Next, the story of the ghost town of Indianola. Okay, now the story of the ghost town Indianola. It was in Calhoun County off the coast of Matagorda Bay. It was started in 1844 by some German colonists. It was originally called Indian Point and was renamed Indianola in 1849. It became the county seat of Calhoun County in 1852. In fact, for a while, it was the second busiest port in Texas after Galveston. It had a population of 5,000 in 1875, but in September of that year, a hurricane hit, which killed between 150 and 300 people and nearly destroyed the town. But they rebuilt, and it continued for another 9 years until it was wiped out for good when it was hit by another hurricane in 1886, and there was also a fire that pretty much burned down what was left of it. I remember reading about it in the 7th grade in Texas history. Now, before I go, here's a word from the good book. Okay, here's something from the first book of Samuel, chapter 10, verse 7. And let it be, when these signs are come unto thee, that thou do as occasion serve thee, for God is with thee. And here's something from the book Savvy Sayings, True Wisdom from the West. A house thief takes one trail. The apostate has to choose from 10. There's a little boy sleeping in any grown man you'd call sensible. A mail-order marriage is trickier than braiding a mule's tail. Never gamble with a man who knows both sides of the cards. The best way to hold cattle in the winter is you do your sleeping in the summer. Men in barbed wire have their good points. A lot of man's religion is in his wife's name. Lawyers get you out of the kind of trouble you never get into if there was no lawyers. Okay? Well, I'm going to tell you about... Oh, you got to go now. Well, thank you for stopping by and checking out my podcast. I was noticing all my podcasts, this one, my sports one, and my original one, the Chris Carlisle Show, have gotten a combined total of 370 downloads, which may not be very much compared to other podcasts, those that are more known than this one are. Of course, if this were an actual radio program or a podcast that was professionally produced and for a profit, it probably would have already been canceled. But on the other hand, I seem to have a pretty good following on YouTube. In fact, I've got most of my recent episodes have gotten an average say about 5 views. That's probably not much either. But anyway, I do want to thank you for checking out my podcast. My name is Chris Carlisle. Leave a like and a rating. Hit the download button. You can hear it on most podcast platforms. See ya.